Hello, this is my recording and my interview assignment for Jeff Cooper, the Director of Residence Life at Kennesaw State University. Uh, he was actually one of my mentors at Kennesaw State whenever I was an RA there. Ever since I graduated, we've kept in touch, and he's gone on to become the Director of Residential Life as well as KSU Housing. So I wanted to contact him and make my interview assignment about him. A little bit of background on Jeff. His education, he has a BS in psychology from FSU. That he realized as he was going through this program that's not what he really wanted, and whenever he became an RA at FSU, he realized that student life and residential life was an area of passion for him. So he decided to explore that a little bit more. He spent 3 years, as I'll get into a little bit later. He spent 3 years away from higher education, and then after those 3 years, he realized that he wanted to really get back into it. So he went to USF and received a Master of Education, Higher Education. He spent several years in different positions before that, though, so that he wanted to kind of see exactly if he wanted to do something else. He spent a couple years as a banker, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So his work experience within higher education, he has over 10 years of residential life experience. He spent 3 years as an RA at Florida State, and this is where he really found his passion for higher education and being able to impact student lives in this way. While obtaining his master's degree, he spent 2 years as a residential hall director at University of South Florida. And after completing his master's, he left to take a position at the University of Tampa, where he spent 2.5 years as an area coordinator. And at University of Tampa, they had a 3-year rule, which he doesn't necessarily agree with, and that's something that he's kind of taken with him. He didn't necessarily like that 3-year rule, where you either move up or you move on, and if you're not moving up, then they always suggest looking elsewhere because you won't have your position after 3 years. Um, some of his employment that's continued from that, he's taken his experiences from being an RA, being a residential hall director, as well as being an area coordinator, and he realized that his passion was training and developing his staff. So that's where he took his next position at Rollins College to run the staff development. He spent 4 years there running the staff development, and he was able to take the staff and grow the staff and allow them to do more with less, essentially, is the way he put it. Uh, Lynn University, he was the director of residence life for 2 years. He decided that it was not necessarily a good fit for his goals. They were in a reorganizational structure there, and he didn't necessarily like South Florida. It wasn't necessarily right for his family. He had a young daughter at a time, and his wife, and they just didn't necessarily. He didn't necessarily see um, his family growing up, his daughter growing up in South Florida. So he applied out of state, and he received a position at Kennesaw State, where he's at now, as the associate director of residential life. And he's worked his way up. He worked underneath Michael Sansevera, who was the founder of KSU Housing, essentially the residential life program at Kennesaw, who has now become the Dean of Student Success at Kennesaw. And so once he became the Dean of Student Success, Jeff was hired and promoted to become the director of university housing and residence life. His employment, this is where I was talking about earlier, his employment outside of higher education that kind of brought him back to his passion, which was higher education, making an impact on the student's life. He spent 3 years in between his undergrad degree at FSU and his master's degree at USF, exploring what he really wanted to do. He had a BS in psychology, and he knew that that wasn't the route he really wanted to take, but it provided him with a unique kind of background in order to gain insight into higher education and student life and student affairs. Uh, some of the opportunities that he explored were he was a pool supervisor. It doesn't sound so glamorous. And he described it as not necessarily glamorous. He described this time in his life as his undecided time, and he was just exploring everything. He was a teller at a bank, He was a substitute teacher, and he was a recruiter for computer programmers. So those are all completely different career paths and different areas in which he explored before getting back into it. Um, and he said substitute teaching was not necessarily the best fit for him, but he did enjoy the fact that the students would be coming to him for advice and so that he could tutor them outside of the classroom, which is something that he really loved, and that kind of swung him back into student life and student affairs. And that's what the last little point is. He was happiest though when training others, which made him miss his RA experiences, made him want to get back into higher education. The best parts of his job, he gets to set the agenda for his staff development, which is one of his passions, as stated in a previous slide. His vision is the vision of the department. So basically, he gets to guide the department in the way that he wants it, for the most part. And we'll get into why I say for the most part later with the split system. Uh, he loves being a servant leader to the students and affecting their lives by influencing the RAs to reach out to them. And that's something that has a huge impact on him, is that he wants to give the RAs the tools, and the area coordinators and the RDs and everybody else um, the tools necessary in order to become uh, the hand to reach out to the residents. And he loves the challenge of finding new and creative ways to make an impact in the students' lives, quote unquote, after hours. And he said that, and it kind of rang true because they go to class. College classes are you can take them at 8 a.m., 3 p.m., 9 o'clock p.m. And he wanted to make sure that he had that impact within their lives after those times within the housing and the residential life program. The not so good parts, though, there's a foundation, the KSU Foundation at Kennesaw, that runs that is governing the housing program there. And so he kind of is pulled back and forth between the school and the foundation. And the foundation is its own entity there. So it creates kind of a tension between the school and what's best for the students and everything. So he says that that's kind of the not so good part. Also, right now he's currently working on his doctorate, and the balance between his schooling, work, and family life is a little stressful, and it's a little demanding. He said it gets kind of crazy at the house. His wife is like, you need to come take care of our daughters, and he's like, well, I have to go to the school to do this, and I have to go, work on a school project. But he seems like he has it pretty well managed because he's able to uh, really find the people and put the people in place to really guide that department, even if he's not necessarily there all the time. So he has good people in place. And we're about to get into the way that the department is set up here in just a second. And his future plans, he wants to pursue a few other areas before settling into becoming a full-time faculty member of a higher education program. Basically, he wants to be able to teach and become a professor within a higher education program. Uh, but before that, he wants to secure a position as a dean of students, and also become a dean of student success as well. So he has a couple things more administrative before stepping into a full-time faculty position. He wants to, I threw this in there, but he wants to retire as Dr. Cooper in a higher education program as a professor. So um, that's a little bit about his career aspirations. The the KSU. I'm going to tell you a little bit about KSU residence life and the housing department, and a little bit of history, so you can see where it's come from. The mission of the department is to develop a living, learning community that fosters growth, success, and happiness within the students. KSU houses currently over 3,000 students. I believe it's either third or second in state with the number of students housed on campus. Where it's a relatively new program. It started back in 2001 with less than 1,000 students, and it's grown to over 3,000. And it had for a very long time been known as a commuter school. Not a whole lot of student activities going on campus. Not really, the students weren't really engaging within the process. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that shifted through Jeff and Michael's um, advancement of that program. The department structure. Did I skip a slide? The department structure at Kennesaw, I didn't skip a slide, sorry about that. The department structure, though, he has it set up in a more hierarchical, and there's a diagram on the next slide that'll kind of show you exactly how it looks. But as of right now, they have 15 full-time staff members, 7 residence directors, which are bachelor's degree levels and up, 3 area coordinators. Typically, those are master levels. So they have those split up into 3 different areas, and that's University Place, University Village Suites, and Kennesaw Place together. So there's 3 coordinators over those areas, 2 assistant directors, which are Natalie and Justin, and they are former CRLs, and that we'll get into the former department structure in a little bit as well. But they were former CRLs whenever I was an RA there, so they've worked their ways up, and they're looking at becoming directors in their own rights. They have a business manager, an office manager, as well as the director, which is Jeff. Currently, they have 78 RAs and 12 student assistants. And here's the structure that they have right now, with all the names and everything on there. So, and that's their department structure as of this year. So you can kind of see exactly how it's broken down. University Village Suites and KSU Place, they have 3 residence directors, whereas the University Village has 2 residence directors, and the University Place 1 and 2, there's 2 different phases there. They just updated and built new housing there, and there's also 2 residence directors there, and they all report up eventually to Jeff. Departmental concerns, and this is, they just built the new housing like I just said, and these are some of the departmental concerns that are currently happening. The biggest one is an occupancy issue. The private companies like West 22 and the lofts are coming in and eating into their occupancy levels. They're running at about a 92% occupancy rate right now. And before, whenever I was an RA, they had a waiting list of over 700 students, and now it's only at 92%. The KSU Foundation split system, KSU Housing going through staffing changes, they're short staffed, and there's too many innovative ideas and not enough staff to follow through. Department finances, they've always run kind of conservative finances there for programming and things. They've opened the purses a little bit, and they actually threw the largest event in KSU history, where over 3,000 students came out and supported an event that they had. They need more staffing as the number of on-campus students increases, and there's the need for increase in larger programming to build community. The large accomplishment is the reorganization of the staff into an advanced, more hierarchical system. And we talked about the hierarchical system earlier. They transitioned from RA to CRL, AD, Director to include the RA, RD, AC, AD, and Director. It allows for more strategic thinking. A new phase of housing, which required this, and they host, like I said earlier, they hosted the largest event in campus history. Some future plans that they have in the housing and the residential life is, if everything stays status quo, they want to expand and continuously increase student involvement, focusing on programming but also engaging their residents in new ways. They've started a YouTube channel, and that's part of their programming model. They've just changed their programming model as well. They want to make sure that the community view KSU differently, less than a commuter school and more of a campus school. Basically, my reactions to this, I was shocked about the occupancy rate, being a former RA, to see it that low, but it's still over 3,000 students. But I was impressed with the digital technology used for programming and resident engagement. I would love to actually work within the department again, more on a administrative side. They have a very cohesive work team and strong organization. The department is still young. I mean, it's a little over 10 years and it's still growing, and it's the perfect time to be a part of the department. Basically mowing high grass, meaning that there's a lot of stuff still yet to be done that could be done. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you learned something a little bit about Jeff and KSU housing and residence life. Hope you all have a good day.